So welcome everybody. Wonderful to see everybody. So sweet to sit with everyone. So I've been on a number of conference calls this week and connecting with people from all over, actually, around the world. And it's amazing to me how similar our experiences are internationally. Like I'm talking to people in Hong Kong and Australia and various places, and people are just having the same experience. It's really interesting that, I don't know if it's because we're all connected by social media or how this works, but as I was listening to people and also just reflecting this week kind of on my own process, one of the things that I was really noticing was that we're in this giant ebb and flow. We're in this giant ebb and flow. And, in some ways, the world right now is in a giant ebb because, things have slowed down and stopped, and it's not that kind of going forward. And then I notice in my own life, it's the same. So in terms of this, COVID situation and where people are at, it's not just one thing, like within this bubble of living within it, it has this, just like the ocean, the ebb and flow. It comes in and it goes out. And when I think about the flow part, there's some amazing, beautiful moments. And I've heard people, like I said, around the globe say the same thing, like, just moments of like appreciating. The other night I was walking in my neighborhood and it was so quiet and peaceful and there were no cars and just watching the sunset, and it was just so beautiful. So there's these moments of flow that are quite beautiful in this experience. It might be quiet, might be simple. You might appreciate being able to work in your pajamas. I don't know what it might be for you. And one other person said that they loved this time connecting to their family. One person told me they loved connecting with their teenagers because their teenagers would normally be driving around and not home. And they were like, I have all this time with them, which is really quite precious. And someone else said, I've talked to my family more during this time than I ever have. And it's been incredibly sweet to reconnect with family members. So there's definitely a flow here. It's so beautiful, right? I've had a lot of people say, it feels like being on retreat. It's like, oh, I'm slowing down and I feel like I'm on retreat. And then there's these moments of ebb, right? And when the ebb is here, again, I can feel it in my own mind. I can see it in friends and people across the world. In those moments, it's the undoing. There's a moment of feeling lost, or I feel overtaken by some grief or some depression, or something has kind of grabbed me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, those kinds of moments. And, somebody said to me the other day, after being really frustrated with Zoom and a number of things, they were like, I just want one thing to go smoothly. Why does everything have to have some kind of technological breakdown or, emotional breakdown? Why can't something just go? So when we're in the ebb, these are these moments of being undone. And for me, finding the balance and the ease in this is around mindfulness, is being able to be in mindfulness with both the ebb and the flow, and to understand that these are temporary states going back and forth, and how do we get the most out of them, depending on which one we happen to be in for the moment. So tonight what I want to do is use some mindfulness and just deepen down a little bit more about how to skillfully be with what's here right now. So I go ahead and invite you to close your eyes or You can look at the floor if that's not comfortable for you. And for those of you who would love to be laying down, I totally invite you to do that. And if you lay down, go ahead and put a pillow under your knees so that your lower back drops and you have more support for your back. You can hold it a little longer. So just as you're getting comfortable, allow yourself to just take a couple of clearing breaths. Just breathing out. You can even have a sigh with it, just a and just breathing out any tension or stress that you're noticing in the moment. And I invite you to begin by just gently putting down your stories, the stories that you're carrying from your day. To let yourself be a person without stories for a moment. We can always pick them back up at the end of our sit. And as you let go of your stories, I invite you to let yourself be mindful of what happens when you do that. For instance, notice what happens in your body when you put down your stories or you put them over there. Notice what happens to your back or your breathing. What is this body like without stories? And if you pick up a story again, no problem. You just notice that when you can. And then gently put it down again. And notice what happens when you let it go. And you can do the same for your mind and your heart. When I empty out a story, oh, my mind feels like this. Or my heart goes like this. And as you let go of the stories, I invite you to notice what energy is left in your body. So if I'm not paying attention to stories, what's the energy that's here? Just as it is right now. Maybe racing energy, quiet energy. Or it may feel heavy and depressed. Everything is temporary, but this is what's here right now, given the conditions of today. And notice what happens if you simply allow this energy to be as it is. Just the simple act of allowing. No need to brace against it or push it away or think you should be somewhere else. Again, using our mindfulness to notice how it is when we allow. And now I invite you to simply notice the energy's movement, like just letting it flow or bubble, vibrate. And we don't hold it in our body. We allow it to flow through and out our body. If it's sitting there, we allow it to simply sit. And if it's a lot of energy or uncomfortable for you, I invite you to give it more room. So you imagine yourself sitting or laying down in a safe place. I often find it works well to have a big sky, lots of space for this energy. So you may pick a meadow or a beach, or a big river valley. And let the energy just come alive and do what it's doing. Bubbling, snapping, popping, flowing. Giving yourself a big space for it. And letting this be absolutely normal and ordinary. It's always doing this anyway. It's just that we don't notice because we're often paying attention to the stories. So this is normal and ordinary. Just gently allowing it to release and move and flow. And as you do this, you may feel yourself changing a little bit. That's okay. We're just letting the energy do its natural thing. Coming into our own natural flow. Again, give it lots of room in a safe place. And you don't have to do anything. You just let it do its own thing. Releasing and flowing. And you may find that you begin to feel more spacious. That's okay too. Just let that be normal and ordinary. Resting and allowing. Just being the ocean and letting the movement of the waves just do their thing, flow on their way. Normal and ordinary. And sometimes when energy releases and flows, you may notice it changes. Perhaps a racing energy flows and releases, and then you notice underneath there's a different energy, maybe peaceful, or there may be some sadness or grief. And if so, we welcome that, we allow that. And we do the same thing. We simply notice this energy and we give it room. And we allow it to begin to bubble and flow. Letting it be absolutely normal that it's here. Conditions are such. And we can trust this process. We can rest in it. Put our heart upon it. Allowing ourselves to mindfully notice change. Again, absolutely normal. Being with the natural ebb and flow. And if you do this at home, you can do it as long as it feels good. But for right now, as this energy is still flowing, moving and changing, I invite you to recall a moment that happened recently that brought you joy or ease. A moment when you were in flow. And as you recall that moment, just feeling the joy, the ease of it, the nourishment. And breathing that through your whole body. Saturating your cells and your bones. All the way down to your toes, your fingers, the top of your head. Remembering what it's like to be in receiving and acceptance. Learning how to receive and be with it all. So maybe we could just hear from a couple of people, again, just mindfully speaking, doesn't have to be a big story, but just wondering what that was like, to just notice that underneath the story there was this energy, and then being with the energy as it is, allowing it to do its thing.
I felt like there's a lot of energy, and part of me needs to hold on to that to sort of power through. I mean, we were talking last week or 2 weeks ago about willpower can only get you so far in a few weeks and stuff, but so I don't know that I was able to release it all, but having more space for it to go out and come back felt all right.
Yeah, felt all right. Great, thank you. Yeah, so just kind of getting out of the way and letting it do its thing. It's like, oh, it's not all backed up. It's not as hard. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? And all experiences are welcome.
lot of energy. And I had to open my eyes
Uh-huh.
and just start. I looked out the window and you could see these oaks that are, their leaves are coming out. And I just kind of watched them blowing. And that seemed to be more settling.
Uh-huh.
It was positive. It's as a result of a real positive thing that happened today. It was just I just realized that I'm still like reverberating, holding
Uh-huh.
all of this energy, and it was really hard to just sit there with
Yeah.
eyes closed.
Beautiful. Thank you. And yeah, I think that sometimes when there's a ton of energy, opening your eyes can be a really stabilizing practice. And we can be mindful with our eyes open of the energy still going. You know, we can be looking at a beautiful tree or something and we can still feel, oh, it's, you know, there it goes. It's like bubbling off, right? And so, yeah, that's very skillful means to be able to open your eyes and do that. And the more space we give it, I find that, you know, I've used this metaphor before. It's like energy is like water, and if we run it through a slot canyon, it goes way high and feels overwhelming. And so the more space we give it, when we open it up to a river valley or a big beach or a big sky, the water gets to come down. Same amount of energy, but it's just spread out. And so it can feel a lot more doable to do it that way. But thank you. I appreciate that. So, so this thing about the ebb and flow, you know, I think that when we're mindful of both, one of the things we can do is rather than just kind of trip through and take the ride and feel out of control sometimes or not connected to ourselves, that when we're in flow, for instance, it's an opportunity for us to be in gratitude. If we're mindful of it, we can be in gratitude because one of the things that's important to realize is that it's always changing. Conditions are such, it's always changing. And so a moment of peace and quiet while your kids are outside playing is going to become disrupted in 5 minutes when somebody comes in with an owie or they need a juice or something like that. Or you're sitting at home having a quiet meditation or something and the door opens and your family's back. You know, so all these moments of flow are temporary. So having gratitude and really just appreciating like, oh yeah, moment of quiet, moment of the breeze on my face or this beautiful walk really helps us take it in. I've talked about this idea that nourishment needs at least 30 seconds to really get saturated and to change our mind and our biology. So breathing it through our whole body helps it land and anchor, helps the good land and anchor in us. And then when we come into the ebb of moments, we're overwhelmed, we're crying, it's not working, we don't have enough money, whatever that ebb might be, we're just lost, we don't know, we're lonely, whatever it might be. In those moments, I find like there's two strands that are really important to pay attention to. On one hand, we want to have enough mindfulness to be honoring of this ebb, to be aware of it. Like, okay, this is just an ebb moment. Okay, I'm curled up in a ball or I'm frustrated. This is ebb. And to take a moment of mindfulness to just be with it, to be with the energy, to honor, to allow. And importantly, in that ebb, when we are mindful with it, we begin to listen. We begin to release, and we can feel something deeper going on inside of us. We're undone, but we can feel something changing, something moving. And, you know, I hear a lot in the world today about, a lot of people are saying, I don't want to go back to the old normal. I don't want that world. You know, I'm discovering this new thing and I've gone into a lot of letting go of stuff and letting go of time and letting go of expectations. And I'm starting to find myself again, or I'm finding my family again. And I don't want to go back there. And so people are saying they'd like the world to change. But here's the thing. The world doesn't change if we don't change. And so when we're in this ebb, this is actually the place where we change. And so as you're with this energy, whether it's racing energy, sad energy, grieving energy, lost energy, if you can mindfully allow it, you'll start to feel it bubble and move and change. And there's a moment where you don't know who you are anymore. All you know is this thing is going. And if we can allow it, make space for it, this is where we start to change. We are letting go of the old, and it's bubbling away. And to not be afraid in this place, to make friends with it. And you can literally feel yourself changing. You don't even remember who you are anymore sometimes. And then we have these moments of integration. You know, we rest. It's important to rest in these times. Cry, you know. And then after the tears or after the temper tantrum that might, you know, happen for a moment, if this energy discharges, there's this ease that comes back. And it's new and it's quiet. You know, or like I said, you might let go of racing energy and then suddenly you realize, oh, there's all this grief underneath. I didn't even know there was all this grief. Or like last week we did fatigue and people were like, I didn't realize that I had this deep fatigue underneath. And so as we're releasing this, we are changing ourselves. We are releasing the old stories, the old fears. We are coming to know ourselves as this flowing, changing energy, and we're okay. We're okay. And so, you know, I keep hearing people say, oh, I don't want to go into that because I feel like I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. And what I realize is the rabbit hole is actually a wormhole, you know? And it's like, if you go down the rabbit hole, you're going to come out somewhere else. You're going to come out somewhere else. And for some of us, it's going to be a new career. For some of us, it's going to be a new relationship with someone we maybe were disconnected to. For some of us, it's retirement. I think there'll be a number of people in this episode, this epidemic, where they just say, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to retire a little early here, you know? And so a whole new life is waiting to be discovered, perhaps more true to who you are today, you know? But we won't get there if we are holding on to the old. There's an old saying, I think I've heard it the most in Buddhism. I have heard it in other wisdom traditions, but there's this saying, let go or be dragged, right? And so there's this moment that when the energy is going, it's like we need a practice to let go and be okay. So I hope that this is of help to your practice. I hope that you can be with the energy that's here today for you. For each of us, it's different and it's changing all the time, whether you're in the flow or the ebb. And to know yourself as this moving energy, this flowing energy, to let this be part of your mindfulness so that it becomes quite normal to be fluid, becomes quite normal to flow. And then when we're comfortable with change in ourselves and we're allowing ourselves to be changed, we can be comfortable with the change in the world. Because right now we're in a big don't know, not knowing. And what's it going to be like if we can move through the world trusting that it's all changing and it'll find its feet again. Yeah. So I just want to invite us to a mindful moment, just in closing. And again, just so we kind of anchor our intention and allow whatever good comes from our practicing to flow. So I invite you to close your eyes or look softly at the floor. And just allow yourself to gently accept, receive any good that comes from this practice. Becoming skillful in learning how to be with and allowing change and flow. And if it brings us more at ease or to more peace, that ripples out to all the people we meet and touch with our hearts. So that the ease and goodness flows to others. And holding the intention that all beings can be comfortable with ebb and flow and see it as normal. And allow themselves to relax and rest in the not knowing, in the change. Allowing themselves to change. May all beings receive the blessings of ease and allowing. So thank you for your practice and your kind attention. And I invite you to share any and all of this with anyone that you think it might be of service to, so that we all are held and supported in this ebb and flow. So thank you so much, and so lovely to sit with you. And it's hard to say goodbye. I feel the ebb of ending here. So
It's not goodbye.
oh, it's not
So long.
so long. Arrivederci. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah, thank you guys.